you can see that this is almost like a proper sports car two-door design, and there is not a lot of muscle in this specific design here. And I'm glad that they didn't go in this direction, because this to me looks way too sporty for a Mustang. Ford has finally unveiled the brand new Mustang, and there is so much I want to say and talk about this design. So we're just quickly gonna jump through the spec and tech that we know so far of the new Mustang. It will still have the 2.3 liter and the 5 liter Coyote engine, up to 500 horsepower in the Dark Horse, which is a brand new model for Mustang. I like the name, I like the logo as well, but these engines are updated and upgraded for this new Mustang. And on the interior, guess what we have there? We have a big iPad that they stuck onto the dash. More on that later in the video. It's a 12.4 inch gauge cluster and a 13.2 inch infotainment screen. And in the base model, this big screen is separated. So you have two different versions of interior, whether you buy the base or a more premium version of the Mustang. And Ford says that it's intended to appeal to a younger demographic, people that grew up playing video games. And I'm not sure if I think that's the best inspiration to put in a Mustang, but we're going to talk more about the interior later. So the pricing for this, currently the Mustang starts at $29,000 for the base, all the way up to $57,000 for the Mach-E if we don't count the Shelby models. So you can expect it to start a little bit higher than that. So let's jump into Photoshop here and look at this gorgeous sketchboard that we have right in front of us, starting with the beautiful ideation sketches up here, obviously inspired by some animals that a lot of times when you design cars, you take a lot of inspiration from nature, and it looks like Ford did the same thing right here. So I really like these sketches, and these are the type of sketches that make me excited, and I love to look and analyze these sketches just as much today as I did when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I think these are just beautiful. I prefer to look at the ideation sketches, the early sketches. Where did this shape actually come from? So here you can see we have a totally different design than the production version of the new Mustang. Let's just pick a color that you can actually see. So we have more of a sloping front end in this very early ideation sketch. Looks like we have a visor design in the early beginnings here, and this looks a lot like a Camaro to me. And I think it still looks like a Camaro in the rear end in the new Mustang. Gonna have a look at that in a second. And you can see the chiseled rear end here as well. And then we have this L shape in the front end right here that I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen that in a Mustang before. Then you get a little bit more refined in this side view sketch. Beautiful sketch, simple, cool gray shading in this design. Now you can see that this part gets a little bit more defined and more Mustang style with this shoulder, but we still don't have a sharp shoulder in the front end, and we don't have the hockey stick design that I loved about the 2010 to 2014 Mustang. I really liked that feature in that generation Mustang, and I want to see that come back. Unfortunately, it's not coming back for this generation. And moving down, we have more ideation sketches down here. You can see that this is almost like a proper sports car two-door design, and there is not a lot of muscle in this specific design here. And I'm glad that they didn't go in this direction, because this to me looks way too sporty for a Mustang. That's the thing though. I mean, it's a fine line when you're designing either Camaro Mustang or a Challenger. They're all supposed to be muscle car, but in my opinion, only the Challenger today is the last proper muscle car. The Mustang and the Camaro, as you can see, they are way too sporty, in my opinion, to be called a muscle car anymore. It still looks good. I mean, looking at these sketches here, we're getting more and more refined into the production version. You can still see that in this phase, we still had a sharp shoulder line here and a sharp rear end. I love this sketch. It looks very, very aggressive, but it still looks very sporty. And I did make a redesign of the Mach-E a while ago with some small changes that I wanted to see to make it more like a muscle car front end and less like a sports car. And it looks like they went a little bit in that direction in the production car, which I'm going to show you the front view in just a second here. And this is pretty much what the new Mustang looks like in the front end. A horizontal line that cuts the starting point for the front fascia. A massive big grille here, which has this plastic or something, a trim piece that extends the grille downwards here, which looks pretty cool. And then we have the side view here as well, and the rear view, which we definitely need to talk more about later in the video, because that is the piece that I'm not so sure about when it comes to the design. But let's start with the front view here, and let's have a look at the brand new Mustang. Compare it to, I took the Mach 1 here. I think I said the Mach E earlier, but I obviously meant the Mach 1, and just have that as an example, because this, to me, when they did this update, I thought this was way too sporty to be called a Mustang. Now we have these angles in the headlights, we have a curvature in the grille, and a very narrow front end, and it doesn't look muscle car at all anymore to me. It still looks good, but as I said, if you you have to decide, do you want to call it a muscle car, or do you want to just abandon that and go into sports car territory? And I think the Camaro and Mustang have done that. As I said, the Challenger being the only remaining proper muscle car. And you can see that they did go into this more muscle car style with this new generation, with this lineup being straight in the top part, and you have the headlights being straight as well. We have a simple grille with a straight line at the bottom and a straight line at the top, and some styling features in the lower part of the intake, but it's still a very simplistic design, and I appreciate that from Ford, trying to dial the sportiness back, bringing in a little bit more muscle in this design. Looking at it from a side view, I think some things that I prefer about the Mach 1 here, the S550, is this line in the shoulder. You can see that that is completely gone now. This is too big of a surface, in my opinion, where nothing happens. Specifically, if you want to have a sports car, it makes it look a little too thick for me. To have it just a smooth line there, I will need to have some sharpness somewhere in this line. We do have it in the bottom here, but I wish we had this hockey stick design that we had in the 2010 to 14 Mustang coming back here. The roof line looks pretty much identical as the previous generation. It's a very subtle change, this Mustang. It's definitely an evolution and not a revolution in design, which I think is fine. They just fine-tuned the graphic. Looking at it in the rear, this is the area where I'm not so sure that I prefer the new over the old, because what I wish Ford would have done here with this taillights is to have this cut line for the trunk move all the way straight, go all the way straight into this line, and then have the taillights going down to this point, so they extend a little bit further. Now they look too they kind of look too weak for me, the graphics in the rear, specifically in combination with the front end. I think it would benefit from it extending a little further and being more geometrical. It would kind of connect better to the front end. Also improve the muscle car feel of the Mustang. It's still a very good looking rear end, but again, is it a sports car or is it a muscle car? I think they were a little bit confused, specifically looking at the rear end, and I do prefer the old generation over the new one. But if I were to pick one Mustang in recent times that I prefer the most, it's gonna have to be 2015, because this is the simplicity that I'm looking for in a muscle car. It needs to be super simple, 3 straight lines, and I think these are more, these taillights have more thought gone into them than they do in the new ones. The new ones looks too static and flat. This 2015, it's a 3D piece that you can grab around. You can feel every single bar, and there's still LEDs, straight lines, and creating this solid, confident rear end that I want to have in a Mustang. Now, last but not least, let's have a look at the new interior here as well. So up top we have the old interior, or the current interior, I would say, and down here we have the new. This is obviously the premium, where you have the big screen, or iPad as I call it, stuck on here. Maybe we can call this a TV because it's so huge. So this is one piece of glass right here. You have the infotainment screen and you have the digital gauge cluster, and these are customizable however you like. Do whatever you want with these. and you can have some animations that look like some video games and stuff like that, which is all cool. I'm for all that. What I don't like, as I've said before, is I think the integration, when you integrate the dials or the gauges like this, it just feels a little lazy design-wise. You might call me old-fashioned, but same thing here. I'm gonna go and prefer the old version here because we still have the digital gauge cluster right here. Everything is digital, customizable, but you can see that it's clearly separated from the infotainment screen. This, if you want, sure, make it a little bigger, remove these buttons and make the full screen like this. I don't mind that. But don't touch the gauge cluster. Don't remove the roof for the gauge cluster, and don't remove the house, the cozy little house for it, where everything sits and you have them sitting inside of the dash instead of just having them out in the wild like this, right behind the steering wheel. It just feels a little lazy, and it feels like less effort was put into actually designing the tactile features of the interior. One thing I do love about the new interior is that we have a flat bottom steering wheel right here, which is really cool compared to the old one, which is an old round one. This looks a lot sportier, and it's gonna help you not hit your knees and stuff when you go drifting, because you have this drift e-brake in this new Mustang as well, and you can see that we have a manual transmission. So overall, I'm excited for this car, and the thing is, I'm gonna have to wait for my final thoughts on this until I actually see it in real life. It's gonna be a matter of whenever this goes on sale. A couple of months later, you're gonna have 100 of them just as soon as you go outside, so I'm sure you're gonna see a lot of these on the streets. If I was buying this new Mustang, I would definitely go for the Dark Horse version, not just because of the power, but I think these small design changes, the front lip and the different grille, it really helps the proportions, the graphic proportions of the new Mustang. Well done, Ford. I really liked that they took it into the more muscle car direction, reduced a little bit of that sportiness, and tried to bring back some more static lines, specifically in the front end. For the interior, I wish they had an option to go back to the original housing for the gauge cluster. But overall, fantastic job by Ford, and I can't wait to see this out on the street.